So a 1031 tax exchange. It's otherwise known as the like-kind exchange. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. Thank you for tuning in. My name is Kamya Newcombs with Engel Völkers, and this is my channel, Dream Home in Arizona. And today we're discussing 1031 tax exchange, which is a deferment to capital gains. So we're going to get into a little bit of the detail, not a great deal. I'm not a tax advisor. I used to work in accounting and bookkeeping and stuff, but still, I am not going to be advising you as a tax professional. You need to seek your own tax advice. But here is some good information. If you're kind of new in the investment arena, I've seen a lot more investors out there these days because of the market and the uptick on the seller's market and everything. So I really wanted to get out there and at least get some education going. But today we're going to talk about 1031 tax exchange, or the deferred of capital gains. It's also known as the like-kind exchange. So what you're doing really is exchanging a property for another property of like condition. So let's get into that. So it may be possible to defer the capital gains tax on an investment property by taking the proceeds of one property to purchase another property. And this other property has to be as equal or greater value than the property that you just relinquished. So that's really important. And there's some timelines that we're going to be going in a few minutes. So we're going to be talking about the new property and the relinquished property. That's the property that you're selling and the one then you're going to be replacing with. So that's going to give you a deferment on paying any capital gains taxes. So just to get started, first we're going to go over some definitions. So according to Investopedia, a 1031 tax exchange is a section of the U.S. Internal Revenue Service. It's a code that allows investors to defer capital gains tax on any exchange of like-kind properties for business or investment purposes. Taxes and capital gains are not charged on the sale of the property and the money is being used to purchase another property. The payment of the tax deferred until it is sold with no reinstatement. So you can kind of keep going and going and going. Of course, eventually, if you ever want to get out of it, you're going to have to just pay that little bit of capital gains. But there's a way, there's a couple other ways around it. Talk to your tax professional and get that information from them. But let's look at the rules of the 1031 tax exchange. Those are really important, of course. There must be at least two properties involved in a 1031 tax exchange. No, that doesn't mean you have to buy two properties. The two properties involved is the property that you're relinquishing and the property that you're purchasing. And it has to be like kind. It has to be residential to residential, so on and so forth. But it also has to have the monetary value of the like kind exchange. So you can't exchange $1 million house for, a $300,000 house. You could change $1 million house for two $500,000 houses. I don't know why you would want to do that, but hey, it's your money, whatever. But let's get a little bit more into it. The purchase price of the new property must be equal or greater than the property that's being relinquished. All equity or cash must be reinvested in the new property. So once you sell that relinquished property, all your cash or all your equity needs to be reinvested into the new property of equal or lesser value, like I said before. Another golden rule to remember is you must use a qualified intermediary, so a QI. So this is a person or an institution that you're going to go to kind of set all this up. And in order for you to avoid paying those capital gains taxes or any of those taxes, you really need to be using a QI. That's going to save you thousands of dollars. So that's definitely something that you're going to want to look into, is getting that the QI set up beforehand. That way you're not scrambling the last bit. But there are some timelines, and let's go over some of those as well. So there are some timelines that you have to look into when you're doing a 1031 tax exchange, and they are extremely important, and they will be definitely keeping track of that. And when looking at the timelines, you don't want to wait until the last day, because if anything happens with the property that you're purchasing to take over the relinquished property, you don't want that to fall out of escrow and then you lose that window. So time is definitely of the essence to get that new property set up and identified. First and foremost, identified and then closed. So let's go over some dates. So like I said before with the QI, prior to closing on the relinquished property or the property that you're selling, you must have an agreement and everything set up with the QI. So definitely that's timing. So get that, like I said before, get that all set up, get it out of the way, and then we can move on from that. Within 45 days of closing on the relinquished property, so within 45 days of closing, you have to identify the next home. So you have 45 days. That's not a lot of time, especially depending on the market. So on a seller's market where things are just popping and it's going to be hard to get a home under contract, you definitely want to act very quickly, or maybe even have one kind of in the works if you're buying off market, like not things that are listed on MLS, so there's no competition. So the little things to consider. If you already have one identified, great, get all that set up so it just goes nice and smoothly. But if you are in the position where you're wanting to sell and then look, we need to move pretty quick. So keeping that in mind, you have 45 days to identify your next property. Now, when I'm saying identify the property, it doesn't mean buying the property, but you identify the property. So within 180 days of the closing of the relinquished property, so the buyer, which is you now, because now you're the buyer must acquire one or more of the replacement properties identified during the ID period. Now, this all seems kind of confusing, and I'm sure if you're a new investor, it's probably like, oh my gosh, what did I get myself into? But it's a lot easier when you're working with a professional that knows what they're doing. Okay, first and foremost, get a QI. Get a real estate agent that has done this many, many times. And of course, talk to your tax advisor. And real estate is a great investment. It always has been. It always will be. Even during the bubble and the boom and the crash and whatever you want to call it, real estate is still a great investment because everybody needs a place to live. So if you're ready to start that journey and you want to become an investor, if you're seasoned and you want a great real estate agent that's done investing herself, give me a call. If you're new in the game, definitely give me a call. You're going to need someone that will support your ideas and your endeavors. So give me a call. Let's get you started on the right track. There's a lot more videos coming down the pike pretty soon. Don't forget to hit that subscribe and follow button, and I'll see you on the next one.